Hello, everyone. Welcome. We will be starting right at noon, so in just 1 minute. All right. Hello, everyone. Hello, DCPS families and community members. Thank you so much for joining our last panel of the DCPS Family Summit. My name is Sophie Hagan, and I work on the Family and Community Engagement team at DCPS. So whether you've attended other sessions this morning or are just tuning in now, we are so excited that you've joined us for this conversation on community supports and resources available for DCPS families. So before we start, I'm just going to go over some interpretation in case we have any folks on the line who need it for this session. Para nuestras familias hispanohablantes, tenemos servicios de interpretación. Hagan clic en el icono de interpretación abajo en la pantalla y hay un globo. Cuando seleccione el globo, ya verán el idioma español y pueden empezar a escuchar toda esta sesión en español. Si tienen alguna pregunta, por favor, escríbenos en el chat y mi colega les ayudará. All right. So now I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Christy. She is our specialist at Connected Schools at DCPS, and she's going to introduce herself and kick it over to our amazing panel.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sophie. Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Saturday. I'm so excited to be here with this wonderful panel. So like Sophie said, my name is Christy Atlee. I am a specialist for the Connected Schools program here at DCPS. Connected Schools is DCPS's version of the full service community school model, which is a model that really works to provide resources for families. So we're excited to be here today. We do have one of our Connected School managers on the panel today who can tell you a little bit more about that particular program. But today's conversation is really about all the community resources and things that you can find right in your community or right in your DCPS schools. And like it says, we're all in this together. So we're excited to hear more from our panelists today. So I'm going to have, let's have Jonna from Washington Lawyers Committee kick it off first. John, I think you're still on mute. Maybe John is having some muting issues, or are we all muted by accident, Sophie?
I can't tell that. I think
it should be working now. Sorry.
Are you all able to unmute yourselves now?
I just did it. Okay, so my name is Jonna Turner. I work with Washington Lawyers Committee and I coordinate the Parent Empowerment Program. And so essentially my role is to work with parents in Title I schools that are in marginalized school communities. And essentially what we're doing is providing the capacity for parents and so that they have, the fundamentals of becoming a legitimized parent organization. We begin by developing bylaws. We also get a bank account and we do those fundamental things so that they can be an established parent organization. And then from there, we support parents to, really address the resources that they want at their school. And by doing that, we raise support, we address issues And then also we work to build up this hope that parents are empowered, that they have a voice. And not only do they have a voice, but they have the feet, the legs, everything to make things happen at their school. And so we believe that this is a civil rights issue and that each child should have a high quality education. And we're there to support parents so that they have the resources that they want for their child's school so that they can continue to support their child's education.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jonna. I'm going to kick it over to Hope from Children's National Hospital.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Hope Rhodes. I'm a primary care community pediatrician and the associate medical director at one of our health centers down in Southeast DC at the ARC, which is on Mississippi Avenue. And then the other role, which brings me to this platform, which I'm excited to be a part of, is our mobile medical program. So that's one of the things that I operate. And throughout the pandemic and moving forward, the mobile medical program is going to be partnering with DCPS in order to bridge some of the gaps in care that we have seen during the pandemic. And one of the ways that we're going to do that is by bringing vaccines, immunizations, routine immunizations, and other services to various DCPSs throughout the city. We've done that all last year, and we'll be doing that up until and throughout this upcoming academic year. Happy to be a part.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining. Next, I'm going to kick it over to Lena Hyde. She's the Connected School Manager at Lena Hyde.
Everybody, my name is Lena Hyde. I am the Connected Schools Manager at Elliott Hine, which is situated in Ward 6. And the majority of our families live in Ward 7 and 8. So we are a proud Ward 6 school serving primarily east of the river families. We started the Connected Schools program last school year. So we are in our second year of being a connected school. And Elliott Hine Middle School is a school of 271 students this year. We are growing every year. And I'm excited to be here and talk a little bit about the services that Connected Schools provide to families. It looks a little different at all of the 10 different Connected Schools, but the primary thread that flows through every school is that we lead with compassion, we lead with caring for families, students, and staff to ensure that our entire school communities are moving forward in the way that promotes health and healing and progress for everybody in the school community.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lena. And last but not least, we're going to kick it over to Eleni from Carlos Rosario.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Eleni Lawrence. I'm one of the I'm part of the academic leadership team at the Carlos Rosario Public International Charter School. We at Carlos Rosario service the diverse immigrant community of the district, primarily through our English language instruction, as well as workforce programming. We also have GED programs in English and in Spanish, and offer citizenship classes, and also community classes of Spanish language and Amharic instruction. We work with adults across the district, but primarily many of our students live in wards 4 and ward 1. And we are looking to serve our students that are parents in a variety of ways. We have specific programming for parents, including our English for Families program, where we actually partner directly with some DCPS schools and provide English language instruction to the parents of those schools in conjunction with the schedules that make most sense for those families. And you know, we also do a lot of programming in technology instruction and provide additional supports for our students that are parents to reach out to their school communities, working closely with our student services staff to make sure that they're able to support their kids through their educational journeys. So I'm really excited to be here with you this afternoon and talk about the variety of ways that we as a school are supporting our families that are DCPS families.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much for your introductions. So we are just going to go ahead and dive right in here. So I'd love to hear more from each of the panels. What are some of the main programs that you provide for families, and particularly if you haven't touched yet on how those programs are specifically provided to DCPS families? That would be really helpful as well. And I will let whoever wants to take it off first go right ahead.
So I'm happy to jump in. Some of the primary ways that Children's National is partnering, in addition to being one of the largest, primary care and pediatric care providers in the district, is that we do operate 2 of the school-based health centers in DC. One is Dunbar, and the other one is Ballou High School. And in addition to that, as mentioned before, we do have this great partnership with the mobile medical program and what's called Children's School Services, which provides kind of case management to DCPS. And so the mobile program has partnered with Children's School Services to help to identify which areas are of greatest need as it relates to immunization decline in the city. And so they have this wonderful health equity rubric, which helps us to identify which schools we're going to be targeting during the upcoming academic year and also throughout the summer. And so in the event that families, parents, I see we have a great array of personnel and community members on the line. If you're interested in having the mobile unit come out to your school to help kind of address some of those needs, you can call 202-436-3082. I'll also pop it in the chat. So 202-436-3082. And we'd be more than happy to come out in order to help. And there are many other things that we do, but I just really want to highlight those 2 initiatives.
Thank you.
I can go ahead and jump in next. So I touched on it a bit in the introduction, but I really want to highlight our English for Families program, which is directly operated in partnership with DCPS. We really go where the families are and the families are requesting that we come to serve to provide these beginning level and English language instruction classes for parents. These classes are created both with English language benchmarks, but also with technology benchmarks, as well as specific units of instruction that are created for parents and really with parent input. And that can look anything like preparing parents to have a parent-teacher conference, preparing parents to create, to share information with the school as far as when a child has to be absent and practicing, sending proper and completing forms, doing enrollment paperwork, helping parents navigate the My School DC system with a variety of sessions that parents are able to do with their English language instructor in a supported setting that is familiar to them at their child's school. Additionally, we as a school have really, in the pandemic, have leaned into our partnerships with DCPS and have worked in conjunction to provide language support for parent town halls that have been taking place, as well as to conduct parent focus groups to really reach out to the communities that we service in a variety of languages to bring feedback to DCPS of how parents are feeling during this time of the health crisis, and making sure that the district is getting that information from families in their home language.
I can share a little bit about what Connected Schools looks like in DCPS and what it looks like at Elliott Hine. So Elliott Hine is a little unique because our school is very small and we're situated in Ward 6, which is where Capitol Hill lives. And so our school dynamic always looks a little bit different than some of our partner schools in other parts of the city. So as a connected school, we have a few really key driving factors to being a connected school that keep us informed and keep us going in the right direction. One of those is really to focus on attendance. So working with students and families to ensure that school is a safe space, that school is a space that kids enjoy coming to. And so we partner with partner organizations to provide additional attendance intervention and incentivizing it and making sure that kids are excited to come to school. Part of that is having a trauma-informed approach. And so all of the connected schools in DCPS are heavily invested in making sure that we are not only trauma-informed, but that we're practicing from a trauma-informed lens, and that students are not re-traumatized or traumatized further at school, but instead that school is a place where they can access those place-based services to address trauma and make sure that they have what they need to be successful. This also is possible for families and for staff. So we make sure that staff are able to access trauma-informed services and families are able to access trauma-informed services through our Parent Resource Center, through different workshops and gatherings that we have for families, through relationship building home visits, and just an array of different services to make sure families have what they need. And most importantly, connected schools really focus on bringing the community to the school. So making sure that families are welcome in the school building. There have been times in the history of Elliott Hine and in a lot of DC public schools that families were told, you can't come past the front door. You're not safe to have in our school. This is a space only for children. And Connected Schools really flips that on its head and says, actually, we need all families to be involved and all family voices to be part of our school. So the work of Connected Schools is really driven by an annual needs assessment that we do with students and families primarily, and then additionally with staff to say, what are the gaps here? What are the things that we're missing? What are the things that families and students need that we're not hearing or that we're not seeing and that we aren't providing? And then we really focus the next year on providing those services, those supports, those resources, and those activities to kids to make sure that they have what they need to be successful, but also for school to be a fun place and a safe place and a happy place. So that is really what drives the work of Connected Schools. And I will say that while there are 10 DCPS Connected Schools, I would be amiss to assume or to promote that that's the only way that families access community school services in DCPS. I don't know the total number of community schools in DC, but there are a large number of schools in DC that actually have community service workers and community school coordinators that also make sure that those place-based services are in place. And it looks a little different at every school, right? At Elliott Hine, we have a pantry that also serves our feeder elementary schools, whereas at a school like Blue, they're really, really diving into trauma-informed care to help students address the numbers of losses and grief that they're having. And they've invested in making sure that staff have counselors to talk to deal with the number of losses that they've experienced in their school. So it looks a little different at every school, but it is really made to fit the needs of every individual school community.
And I'm happy to go next. So again, I work with Washington Lawyers Committee. And so the organization in general works on many different issues that many families are dealing with.
Your sound is cutting out a little bit. I don't know if that's just me.
All right, is that any better?
Yes, that is better.
Okay. So as I mentioned before, I work at Washington Lawyers Committee, and so we handle a lot of the issues that families in the city are dealing with. Schools are usually the hotbed of the issues that we're swirling around. And so at Washington Lawyers Committee in general, we have a few different parts or different projects that are happening within the organization: housing, immigration rights, workers' rights. And so normally when I work with the schools, we provide avenues for parents to tap into those other places. However, the Parent Empowerment Program really is an opportunity to support parents on, from beginning with parent organizing. And so normally, I start off working with one parent that just has a desire to do the best they can for their child, and then we grow. So we get that one parent, and then we work with other parents, and then we use those that diverse set of skills and resources to ensure that they're bringing, what they desire to the school. Oftentimes, in some of the schools that I work with, we branch out to the community. And so not only are we working with the parents there, we're also bringing in community members, neighbors who see the school down their block, but our message is that's just not a school down the block. That's a school full of hope, full of potential. And if you give your resources to it, you can make the school a brighter place. And so sometimes we work with people who are lawyers in the community, who are web developers, and they bring those resources to the table and not only partner with the parents, but also speak with the parents. And so they're all collaboratively working together. And in addition to, again, when I first talked about just building up those fundamentals of being a parent organization, we really are big on increasing social capital. A lot of families that I work with are unfamiliar with using their social network, even if it's just collecting $1 or $2 so that they can bring in those resources to the school. So we encourage families to do that. And what we've noticed is that once parents start to invest, even if it's just $1, even if it's just $3, their engagement level is different. And parents want to ask more questions. They're more thoughtful about how money is being spent. We ensure that parents are not just putting their money together for cookie night, but they're providing resources so that the kids have multicultural books, so that teachers have strong professional development, while also advocating for themselves too, doing testimonies and hearings and addressing those advocacy issues. And so what we've noticed is that when parents are, working together as a village and as a community, it provides a deeper sense of investment and a deeper sense of empowerment. And that's what we want. And then also with the school partnership program, that's when we connect with the different law firms in the city. And then we work with the law firms to provide resources into the school as well. And again, the schools that we work with are a hotbed of a lot of issues. And so if there's a family that's dealing with housing or immigration or workers' rights, we try to connect them to additional resources that we have at Washington Lawyers Committee.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Jonna. So I kind of want to pivot a little bit here. I think, Elaine, you started kind of touching on the times that we're in now, which is, of course, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, although maybe some slight hope now that we're all vaccinated or getting there. But, towards the beginning of the pandemic, we all had to make a pretty hard pivot. A lot of you have been providing these same services for years and years in DC, and had to really think through how you could connect with families in new and different ways that no one has really tried before. So I'd be really curious to hear from each of you how you were able to pivot to support more families during the pandemic, how your relationships with families shifted. I imagine Dr. Rhodes, it's probably, switching from doing a lot of in-person medical services to video services is a big change for a lot of folks. So I'd love to hear from all the panelists on what your services kind of looked like in the pandemic and how you had to change, your mindset, the school's mindset, and organization's mindset, and how you approached care.
Yes, I'm happy to jump in again. You're absolutely right that we did have to pivot a bit from in-person visits to telehealth. And the great thing, I think, is that as from a primary care standpoint and an organizational standpoint, Children's National remains available and continues to remain available as we continue to march through the pandemic. Had to make some adjustments about spacing and scheduling and things like that, but I do want to continue to send the message that we are available and accessible. I think one of the great things that we were able to do as an organization through our Child Health Advocacy Institute is to offer a slew of parent-focused and youth-focused town halls, all of which has been recorded. And what I'll do is pop in the chat the web address where you can find those recorded sessions, but everything from mental health to the importance of staying connected with primary care services, and even things like addressing historical medical mistrust in the community as we are in this space of the COVID-19 vaccine, and what that looks like and how to address and dispel some of those myths around the vaccine. So all of those things were offered starting starting last year and have continued. The other, I think, really cool thing is that our adolescent medicine department, alongside myself, also developed an Instagram account that is specifically targeted towards adolescents. So I know we have, again, a slew of community members on the line that represent different schools and different age groups. But for those of you who are forward facing towards the 12 and up crowd, we do have an Instagram account that is specifically targeted towards them. It's called COVID and Beyond, and I'll pop that into the chat as well. And we also distribute PPE and what we call swag bags to teens as well. So when they come into any of our health centers, we give them a little kind of care package that is specifically geared towards them. And then the third thing I think that I also want to mention is it's very important to us that we leverage the voices of the community. So it's one thing to believe that we have all the answers and know what's right. And I think it's another thing to make sure that we're tapping into the community to really get an understanding of what their needs are. And so one of the ways that we did that is with a survey that we're distributing to adolescents and teens to just get a better understanding of, you know, how we've done so far during the pandemic, just as a community addressing them and their needs, and also what we can do going forward. So those are some just unique ways that we were able to pivot in order to reach a broader breadth of patients and families.
Thank you.
I'm happy to jump in, and I'll be pretty quick. The main thing for us is just Zoom, because we do so much parent organizing. So we essentially really supported families to access Zoom. And so in some school communities, we had sessions where we really supported families, aunties, uncles, grandparents on how to access this digital space. And so what we realized is that digital literacy is not just something that we need to think about for the child, but we also need to think about it for the parent as well. So from a lot of beginning stages of, can you hear me? You're on mute, which still happens now. But just getting families more comfortable with using Zoom. What that has allowed us to do is to spread out more into the community, which we were doing before. But now that we're in these digital spaces, what we notice that people in the community is that sometimes they're coming home from work, or they're not able to quickly dash to another meeting, but they're able to access our meetings, even if they're on their phone, in the car, driving from one meeting to another. And then also, just enhancing our dual language capabilities and ensuring that we're providing some type of translation. And so, we're, because families are coming from so many different backgrounds, we are keeping this digital space simple and accessible and as easy as possible so that families feel comfortable doing that. And, I am just amazed at how families want to do this, especially since we're coming out of climate with so many racial issues and racial tensions. Families are more activated and more energized to support their child's school, and so are community members. And so we are so saddened by what we're seeing, but I think now people are seeing that this is important. And if I need to join a Zoom meeting or a phone call, I will do what needs to be done to ensure that we're creating a brighter future for all children. And so, again, we're keeping it simple and making everything accessible using all platforms. We're even getting savvy with QR codes so that people can do their surveys or whatever they need just by their phone, and just thinking more creatively and thoughtfully about how we support families and ensuring that their voice still counts as we are in the beginning stages of coming back to school and re-entering. And then hearing just what their concerns are and what they're dealing with at home.
Great. For us at the Carlos Rosario School, obviously as a school, first we pivoted to become an online school for all of our programs, and that meant becoming a one-to-one technology school in a very short time frame. We have provided all of our students with laptops with data plans connected to them. So the internet it was not a barrier for them to be connected to their classes. That includes for us providing support on those devices. We do that virtually. We also have in-person support with, you know, all the health protocols in place to make sure that our students who have needs with technology skills can understand how to use those devices and then are able to access their instruction. For the larger school community, we've also partnered with the city and DCPS to do town halls that are in Spanish and Amharic that focus on, you know, vaccine information, you know, early in the pandemic, just make sure that trusted information was getting out to the communities that we serve. And that was an important collaboration that we had. We are also partnering directly with DCPS through a project that we have currently called Project Alturismo. It gives us the opportunity to provide special school-focused workshops that range from, you know, providing information about the services that we offer as a school, providing training for faculty and staff on, you know, becoming more culturally aware, and also providing specific technology instruction for the parents of those particular schools. And we also have workshops that are tailored directly to the schools based on their particular need. And for our students that are parents, we have been running virtual parent support groups with our counseling staff through our student services department to make sure that, you know, our students that are parents are being supported. We know that that parents in particular have had the challenge of everything with the pandemic, as well as the expectation that they are now the child's instructor, and that has caused a lot of stress for many of our parents. So we are doing what we can to make sure that they are feeling supported and at least feeling heard in this time.
So I guess people sort of know what it looked like when schools closed because their children were then at home with them every day. But it really meant that we had to take school from an in-person focus and completely pivot to do everything virtually. So there was a huge learning curve for staff and families and kids. And so, you know, in the spring, it was, oh, we'll get through this. We'll just get through the next few months. Next year, it'll be back to normal. Once we realized that this was not going to just be a quick couple of months thing, we pivoted, and instead of having a supply list for students when they start school, we created supply boxes for every student to make sure that they had all of the supplies they needed at home. And that involved a lot of home visits and dropping kits off at people's doors and making sure that they had them. It meant that home visits instead were happening via video call, which is always difficult, but it just is what it is. And it also meant that we had to really pay a lot more close attention to staff wellness than we have ever before. Staff, myself, I have my kid in the living room on a video call with her friend so that she's distracted. But staff also had to manage teaching classes for students and being present for kids who they were teaching, and also being present for their own families. And so really finding ways to balance and support people, and creating more opportunities for staff wellness and for staff to get together, and sending cards even, and checking in on people. The pandemic also has had a tremendous impact on people's financial well-being and food security. And so it meant really getting our community involved and raising money to serve more families than we have ever had listed to serve for Thanksgiving and for the winter break, to make sure that they had access to food and would not be going without for the holidays and for long school breaks when they wouldn't be in touch with folks from the school, even virtually. We have also had to manage supports for families who are grieving, either because of COVID-19 or other issues, and the impact of loss and grief and not being able to grieve in a community. So making sure that students are linked to community resources and they're linked to counseling supports in the school, but also giving people supports through gift cards or financial assistance, food assistance, making sure they're linked to additional assistance, just to make sure that when a family member has COVID or when a parent has COVID and can't work, that it doesn't completely cripple the family. And I think that it's something that a year into it, we are all still learning. We're all still trying to adjust. And the experience that our students and families and staff and our community as a whole has had over the last, what is it now, 14 months, is not going to go away when schools reopen. And so now we're shifting to how we really tune into the SEL needs, the social emotional needs for students, families, and staff. And so it is one of our school's 4 big rocks, as we call them, that we have to really just focus on wellness before we can even focus on learning math or English or reading. We have to make sure that people are safe and that they're secure. And part of that has been having the conversations with families to help them get to a place where they feel comfortable sending their children to school in the fall. So we've got our fingers crossed for a vaccine for kids. We've got all of that in place, but we're also just focused on enrichment and giving kids opportunities to be kids. That has looked like a lot of online clubs this year, but we're really excited that we're able to do some stuff in person this summer with smaller groups and just start to get kids back in a space where, as my daughter said, she feels like she has to learn how to make friends all over again. So helping kids learn that process all over again, remembering that our kids have been out of school developmentally for like a year. And so we've got 6th graders who have never experienced school in person this year and will be 7th graders next year, but we've got to treat them like 6th graders again to make sure that they have what they need. And so we're trying to sort of plan in multiple different worlds. And also understanding that we're going to have some families that just have not been vaccinated or are terrified of sending their kids to school in the fall, and being ready to support them in any way we need to, and to make sure that a family's discomfort with being in person doesn't exclude them from the school experience. So how do we build community in a hybrid world? I think we'll continue to do our PTOs hybrid, even when they can be in person. We'll continue to do award ceremonies hybrid, even when they can be in person. And so just sort of trying to meet people where they are and not forcing them into peopling again, when it's been a scary time for people, and making sure that we are sensitive to that fact.
All right, thank you all so much. I just want to send out a quick reminder, everyone here, there's a lot of good resources being dropped in the chat. Dr. Rose has quite a few resources from Children's National in there. Eleni has a little bit more information about Carlos Rosario, so please make sure that you're utilizing the chat. So we're kind of getting closer to the end here, so I'm going to throw out one more question to the panel, and then we'll shift towards everyone being able to ask questions of the panels themselves. So if you have questions for the panel, go ahead and start dropping them in the chat, and I'll ask them after this last broader question from the panel. So the last question I want to ask everyone is really, a lot of people say that DC is a very resource-rich city, but people just don't know where things are or how to find them or how to access them. We have a pretty large bureaucracy with a lot of resources, and sometimes it takes having someone who can really like sit down with you and help you navigate, and that's kind of the beauty of someone like a connected school manager who can sit down. But not every school has something like that, not every organization has something like that. So I'm curious to know, thinking of all these resources in the city and all the things, like what do you just wish more families knew was available in DC or in schools? Like what do we just want them to know more about?
I can say for myself as a school employee, having worked previously with families outside of the school district, there is a deep mistrust between families and schools that is generational in DC. And I think that is on us as school employees and on as folks who do this work to rebuild that trust and to help bridge those gaps. But it makes it so much harder to serve families if we don't know that they need help. And so I always explain to families, they'll say, oh gosh, I didn't know that you could help me with this. I've been sitting on this for months and months trying to figure out how we're going to eat. I wish I would have known sooner. And so I tell them, please tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell anybody you can. But I think that that is the work that we have to do to build that trust and to make sure families know what's available. And I also, I guess it's for the professional community, there's always been this level of competition of like, no, that's my family. No, that's my family. We're giving them that service. And I think part of the beauty of connected schools is that we sort of get rid of that and say, this is our family and we want them to be connected as many places as possible. Like, right? Like if they're connected here, it doesn't mean that you can't also connect with them. And so just wishing that families, one, knew that it's safe to advocate for their children and for what they need, and that there are people in every school who are ready to support those needs. And then also that that families knew that there are all of these services available, and that even if it takes us a little work, there's always somebody willing to help dig and find those resources and figure out who the best one is and who the right. So I just think it's I think the work is on us to do that, to build those relationships and build that trust. And I think that as we do that as partners and community organizations and families, that we'll really be able to start saying, hey, like there's the service over there, you can go get it if it's easier for you, instead of, no, I think you should come here because this is who I have a relationship with.
I'm happy to jump in. I think for me, I really would love parents to know their rights, to know their laws. I think oftentimes the families that we're working with, they're having housing issues, not realizing that they're dealing with the slumlord, and systems are in place to try to evict them, and that bleeds into the classroom. Also, with immigration, parents are nervous about certain things in place. That has an impact in the home, which also bleeds into the classroom. Same thing with workers' rights. I've worked with several families where they're working around the clock, but getting paid poorly, treated poorly. And the more that parents know what their rights are, the more empowered they are, the more structure they have, and the more they have a stronger voice in the community. I deeply believe that what's happening in the community, we often see it in the schools. And that could be a gentrified neighborhood, or again, I work at a law firm, so we're very big on segregated communities because we believe that some communities are segregated, not just by race, but by opportunity. And so you see that in the classrooms. And so if parents knew what their rights are so that they can stand up at the workplace, if they knew what their rights are so they're not constantly moving, but they have a right to fair and equal housing, then we know that that will provide a gateway to them being more visible and available in the school. Not only that, but knowing their rights when they come into those school doors, knowing that they have every right to not be held back because of some stigma or implicit bias, but their voice is just as valuable. I think what I love about the work that I do is that what parents want in Ward 8 are the same things that parents want in Ward 3.
I'm so sorry. Your audio is cutting in and out again. You can try to readjust it a little bit again. Sorry about that.
No, is this helpful?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sorry about that. And so I'm not sure where you all stopped hearing me, but essentially we want parents to know their rights, to know that their voice counts. What I was saying just before was that what I do enjoy about the work is that parents in Ward 8 want the same things as parents as in Ward 3. It's the racial wealth gap that's dividing and parents not bringing those same resources to the table. And so, again, parents knowing that there are communities and there are people that will stand with them, that are equal with them. No one's better than the other, and that we're here to support. And then also what's happening in the home, what's happening in their community, there are legal resources that can help them fight for themselves so that they know what their rights are, so that they can, have structure and things that people often take for granted. They can have those same things as well in their home and in their community and in their school.
Those are all great, and I wholeheartedly agree. The one thing that I would encourage parents to do is ask for what you need, or ask for the resources, or ask about the resources that you think you might need or know that you need. But I do want to piggyback on what Lena said. It is also on the onus of the organization to ensure that we are creating a safe space that parents feel that they can trust whomever they're engaging with. So from a primary care or community pediatric standpoint, it is my responsibility to know what resources are available. So all of our primary care medical homes are outfitted with social workers, that if I don't know as the primary care provider what the resource is, I know somebody that can get that resource. When you talk about, Joanna, the importance of having legal partnership, we also have the medical legal partnership, where anybody that comes in that might need some help around safe housing or advocacy as it relates to education or those kind of things, we have those resources that will be able to connect families with. So especially in the medical space, we definitely encourage parents to simply ask, because we like to think of ourselves as more than just vaccines and DC health certificates. I mean, we really are a primary care medical home where families can help to get their needs addressed. When you look at social determinants and health outcomes, what I do as a pediatrician really only has about 20% impact. It's all those other things that really do impact the health outcomes for the children and the families that we serve. And so it's very important that the medical community helps to address those social determinants. So ask for what it is that you need. And then from an organizational standpoint, we are definitely committed at Children's to making sure that we have connections to those resources and can definitely connect families with what it is that they need.
And I'll just jump in quickly because I know that we're at time. I would hope that more families or more parents were aware of the programs that we offer. It's very important for parents to fulfill their educational dreams as well. And, we provide programming that is in a variety of sessions that meet the needs of families, both morning, afternoon, evening. We have some programming on Saturdays. And we have a full student services support system that has case management, mental health counseling, job services to support the entire parent experience. So I would hope that more parents were aware of the free programming that is available to them here in the district.
Thank you all so much. This has been really wonderful to hear from all of you. So much good information. Like I said, please check the chat. Everyone's dropping links to their organizations, to other resources in DC. So we are winding down here a little bit. We might have time for maybe one question out loud if anyone wants to come off mute, and then I'll quickly address any questions we have in the chat and we will close out. So if you have a question, please feel free to come off mute.
Maybe if anyone has a question, I just enable the participants to unmute. I had kept that during the session, like they weren't able until now. Sorry about that.
Thanks, Lynette.
Okay, I have a question. How do you, because I didn't see it there in the chat, access some of these programs, like these free programs? And like you say, there are parents that want to pursue or continue their education. How do you pursue, get that information? I am new to the DC school system, and I know this is the first summit, which is great, because I come from Maryland side of it, but here in DC, how do you pursue a lot of these programs? And I did not get some of the information I know about as far as getting things for the students. I know you can go in a lot of these lines, you just go on, and you're sent here and you're sent there. So now that we are live, how can I access, or who should I go to as far as that's concerned, to get further help or educational benefits and so forth and so on? the medical, the mental, all of it, the whole, whole 9 yards.
So for the medical and mental, you can definitely call 202-476-5000. And they can direct you to the appropriate place, either for a medical appointment or for a mental health appointment. And what I will say again is that all of our primary care sites have within them a psychologist. So we know that the wait time sometimes to get an appointment around mental health can be quite long. But the great thing about our sites is that we can bridge that care with mental health service until a family is able to get an appointment in the community. And we also are outfitted with psychiatrists as well. So 202-476-5000 and ask them to direct you to the primary care site, and we will get you an appointment. And we have multiple sites throughout the city. So 2 in Southeast and a couple in Northwest. And we can get you connected.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, I think that's about all the time we have today. Just one note, someone did ask about whether or not students would be required to be vaccinated against COVID in the fall. I know that Dr. Rhodes dropped a little bit more information about that, but I believe we don't have any information at this time on whether or not it'll be a requirement. So please stay tuned for updates. Other than that, thank you all so much for joining us today. This has been really wonderful. It's been so wonderful to hear about all the different programming that's offered in DC through all these different organizations and through DCPS. It's been really wonderful to have you all and to have all of our guests as well. Please make sure to fill out the feedback survey at dcpsfamilysummit.com/feedback. Please make sure you use the information at the chat. Claudette also offered her email address if you'd like to email her to get the links emailed to you as well. Other than that, have a wonderful day. And if there's anything else, Claudette or Sophie, that you need to share before we close out, please do. But thank you for letting me moderate, and thank you to our panelists so much.
Thank you so much, Christy. I want to thank you and our amazing panelists for joining us today. You all shared such powerful perspectives and some really great resources for our families. So like Christy said, we would love your feedback. As you know, this is our first ever DCPS Summit. So we were really excited to put this on, but we know that we still have a lot to learn. So I think that link was dropped in the chat. Please do share your feedback with us. We really value that. And also, like Christy said, we have some great resources from community members, partners, and those can all be found on our Summit website as well. And lastly, I just want to thank you all so much for showing up today, for carving out this time on your beautiful Saturday. It's been an honor for us to host this event. And we hope that the insights and the tools and the stories that were shared were helpful to you. So I just want to say you are all doing an amazing job. And we are really happy to be supporting you and your family in your advocacy and leadership journey. So with that, thank you so much and have a wonderful day.